Hello everyone. I got a lot of requests and a lot of feedback to do a video on how to make a good first impression. It's not only actually just a first impression, it's how to make a good impression on a Dom, period. Now, while certainly all of these rules are going to apply to me, I am actually going to phrase this and frame this in such a way that it applies to almost all Doms. Certainly there's going to be exceptions to the rule, and I'm only going to go for my general experience, both with my friends, my staff members, myself, etc. Okay, so get your pen and paper, take notes, because this is going to be one of those ones that you're going to want to remember everything I say, right? Right. Okay. First, do your homework. Right. What does this mean? It means do your research. The very last thing that you want to do is you want to contact a Dom out of the blue, whether she's an online Dom, whether she's an in-person Dom, whether she does custom videos, anything, right? Contact her out of the blue without reading any of the information that she's put out for you to read. This does not mean that you have to go searching high and low for each and everything, but if she has a website that you got her contact information off of, then you need to go to that site and you need to read through all of the words. Make sure I explain this to you, all of the words, not just looking at the pictures. Because chances are, if she's like me, and most Doms share this with me in common, we write this stuff for your benefit. We write this because they do apply to you. So if you write an email and the very first thing in your email is asking a question that I've answered in pretty much the very first page of my site, I'm going to immediately write you off as being someone who isn't very serious or that isn't willing to put a little bit of time and effort into corresponding with me, right? So it doesn't mean that I'm going to completely write you off. It just means that I'm probably going to move you down the list and let someone else who's put more effort into their correspondence go first, okay? This also means reading about her interests, okay? Reading about the things that she does, reading about the things that she doesn't do. I mean, most Doms put their limits and their areas of disinterest on their websites, or they, will express them throughout, talking about it in different pages. If she happens to do videos, or if she only does online domination, but she makes no reference anywhere about doing in-person sessions, certainly asking about that's okay. But if she says, I don't do in-person sessions, and then you go say, what would it take for you to meet me in person? Well, you may not get the response you're looking for. Do your homework about the hours that she keeps. Do your homework about the method of contact that she prefers. For example, I get a lot of email. I have one email address, and all of the email goes to this one address because I am the only person who I want responding to my emails. That way it's always private and confidential. But that means that my email response time is honestly not that great, but I always answer my phone if I am available. Okay. Understand her hours and how she prefers to do things. For example, I happen to be a very early riser. Not because I'm a morning person, I'm certainly not, but because I work out every day. I get up very, very early. I get up at 5:45 every morning so that I can work out at 6:30 because it's the time of day that I can actually get stuff done and people don't bother me. So as a result, I don't do sessions past 10 p.m. unless, I can make arrangements to adjust my schedule otherwise. So if someone calls me at like 10:30 at night, you bet your ass that I'm going to be kind of irritated because it's like it's all over. You can't even find my number without seeing the hours posted next to it, okay? All right, so check her method of contact. If somebody says, call me, don't email me, or says email me, don't call me, then use whatever it is that she prefers. Now, if someone lists their phone number and their email address, you email them and you don't hear from them in a reasonable period of time, then sure, call, but don't be obnoxious. Leave a voicemail, and then don't leave a voicemail again or call back for, a period of at least half a day. That way, she has a chance to get back to you, okay? All right, so, and then last on doing your homework. If you Google a Dom's name, no matter what kind of domination she does, If she's been around for more than, 6 months, you're probably going to find other instances of her on the internet, just not her website. And that might give you a little bit of perspective. For example, if you were to Google me, you'll find all kinds of other things that I do, the video production or, doing modeling, doing performing, blah, blah, right? And that might answer your questions as well. It might also give you, some background on that person. Where did she come from? How long has she been around? Not everybody is like me and does their own websites, so they might be at the mercy of a web designer who, may or may not get their stuff updated on time. That's really saying something, of course, for mine. I haven't really been able to update dominasnow.com in forever. I'm working on it. Okay, so next, if you're emailing, and I understand that for most of you, that's what you prefer to do because, it's safe and private and secure. That's okay. But if you're emailing, remember what you learned in school. Address the Dom by the title that she uses. If she uses Mistress so-and-so, use her full name. It's just polite. It's kind of like if you don't know someone, you wouldn't call them by their first name. You would use whatever their most formal address is because that's good manners. Actually put their name, comma, and then skip down a line. Write a letter like you were writing a letter to someone important because guess what? You are. And those first impressions matter. Write a letter of introduction about yourself that is direct and to the point, but doesn't include a bunch of information that may or may not pertain to the Dom. When someone writes, all about themselves and every little minutia of their interests, well, that's great when it's on my application where I'm asking the question specifically. But if someone writes me a book in an email and I don't have any previous correspondence with them, it can be sometimes very difficult for me to find time to read through all that. So then guess what? I'm bumping your email back down the list because it's hard for me to read on my phone if I'm on the go, or, there's all these questions and, diatribes and stuff in your email. Now, if you're sharing an experience, you're sharing, that you've watched my videos and this is how it's made you feel, etc. That's great. But going into the 16th million layers of CBT that you love to do in this fantasy or whatever, or you're copying and pasting, that's the worst. We can tell when the formatting of your email is different because it's real obvious when one font's one way and one font's another way. Okay, next, proofread your email. Imagine that you are writing a letter of introduction to a prospective employer or if you were trying to get admissions into a college. How would you write about yourself? Would you blather on and on about your hobbies? Would you blather on about, how much you masturbate? Of course not. Those things are completely unnecessary, but you would proofread over and make sure that you had good spelling, that you punctuated, you capitalized the first, letter of the sentences. Those things are important because they show that, you took the time and effort to write something that was easy to read. It's very hard for me to read like text speak, when you use the word, letter U instead of you. And I'm from the internet generation. I get all that stuff, but it doesn't mean that's easy for me to read. If English isn't your first language, find someone for whom English is their first language to proofread over your email. I do my very, very best to understand those kinds of emails, but sometimes they're easier to understand when, something that somebody's translated via Google Translate or something, than someone who is writing a one run-on sentence with no punctuation and no, and bad spelling, right? Okay. Sign your name. You don't have to necessarily use your full name if you're worried about discretion. You can use a pseudonym, or you can use like the first letter of your name, let's sign the letter B for Brian or something. And honestly, I know as much as you guys think this, we really don't care who you are and what you do. We really don't. It's more about making sure that you're compatible with us. So if you have a really, common first name, just use your first name. Because if you forget that you used a pseudonym or you are trying to correspond later, then you have to explain that you were honestly too scared to use your real name. And you know how many Brians there are in the world? Do you know how many times you're going to actually connect that you're Brian so-and-so that works at this place, other than just some Brian who sent me an email, right? Okay, last. So you proofread your email, you looked over it, you made sure you're at the point. Don't send pictures. Don't send cockshots unless you are specifically applying to be a video slave. Specifically, when a Dom has something on there that she's looking for video slaves, don't send anything, any kind of picture. One, it might label your email as spam. Two, you don't know how that picture is going to be taken. Like I just got an email today where the person was very, very polite and very well-meaning, but his picture was bad and looked very creepy and kind of made him look like, I don't know, a pedophile. And if someone gets a bad first impression of you, then they may not see you. Or they may be like, oh my God, this weirdo. I mean, if you are within, a safe age range, I don't know, legal to healthy, are within, what the average, size and body range. Now, if you have a physical disability and you're, showing a picture so the person understands, say maybe that you're in a wheelchair, that's perfectly acceptable. But honestly, Doms don't care what you look like. We don't care that you think that you're, an average guy, that you're nice, that you're sane, that you're STD free. Okay. So there's lots of other things that I will probably discuss later on, but those are the big ones. But the very, very last one is this. Be respectful of a Dom's time. If she answers the phone, be direct and to the point. Know what you're going to say. Know what it is that you want. Be honest. Be able to actually say what it is that you're trying to accomplish. If you want to book a session, great. If you want to be able to have do a phone session, if you want to have a custom video, great. Why don't you say those things? If you write into an email, I'm a 6 foot tall white professional male who's very submissive, write me back if you're interested. I have no idea what it is that you want. I have no idea what it is you're hoping to accomplish. And really, I don't have time to send back an email to you saying, I'm interested in maybe getting to know you. Tell me something about you. Make it interrogative. Be respectful of the fact that there are many, many more men than there are of me. Actually, many more men, women, and couples. There are many more of people wanting my time than there is of my time. So show me that you're worth that sliver of me, right? It's the same way with all Doms. And we really do get off on those little acts of respect and those little acts of manners. The better your manners are, usually the better a Dom is going to respond to you. So I'll give you guys tips and tricks later on, but that should get you started, all right? Good. So I look forward to anybody's new and improved correspondence with me, and I hope that this helps to point you in the right direction to frame future correspondence with other Doms.